shockwaves are shaking the entire church world. Bishop T.D. Jakes, one of the most influential pastors of our time, has finally broken his silence about Pastor Joel Tudman's sudden and unexpected exit from the Potter's house. And what he revealed has left pastors, members, and fans stunned. For weeks, rumors spread like wildfire. Whispers of disagreements, hidden tensions, and unanswered questions circled the faith community. Nobody knew the real story until now. Bishop Jakes' statement doesn't just shed light on Tudman's shocking departure. It exposes the hidden battles, the weight of leadership, and the realities behind the pulpit that most people never get to see. This is more than a headline. It's a moment that could redefine how people view loyalty, leadership, and power within one of the most famous churches in America. And trust me, once you hear what Bishop Jakes finally admitted, you'll understand why the entire faith community is buzzing. What was once whispered behind closed doors is now exploding into the spotlight. And the shocking truth behind this dramatic split is far more complicated than anyone could have imagined. Was this just a simple transition? Or is there a hidden story of power, loyalty, and leadership struggles unfolding right before our eyes? Stay with me, because what we're about to uncover could change everything you thought you knew about the Potter's house. Pastor Joel Tudman's sudden exit wasn't just another quiet shift in ministry. It sent shockwaves through the church world. Members were stunned, fans left in disbelief, and critics couldn't stop talking. When a pastor of his caliber suddenly walks away from one of the most influential ministries in America, the questions come hard and fast. Why now? What really happened behind the scenes? And most importantly, what does Bishop T.D. Jakes himself have to say? For weeks, speculation has run wild. Social media has exploded with rumors. The faith community is buzzing. But now, Bishop Jakes has finally broken his silence. And trust me, what he revealed may change the way people look at this ministry forever. The church community has discussed potential causes in whispers, and the same question has been raised by many voices. Where's the truth? We're delving deeply into Bishop Jakes' eagerly anticipated answer and what it says about Pastor Tudman's exit in this video. There are facets to this story that go beyond the headlines, from the stirring sermons that moved millions to the conflicts and changes that few anticipated. In addition to hearing what Bishop Jakes eventually said, if you stick with me through to the end, you'll learn about the unspoken dynamics of allegiance, legacy, and leadership that influenced this momentous occasion. And believe me, even devoted fans of both men will be shocked by some of the information in this article. We must first examine Joel Tudman's identity, his values, and the significance of his work at the Potter's house in order to comprehend why his departure has shocked so many people. Joel Tudman was more than just a preacher who appeared on stage from time to time. He was among the more vocal members of Bishop T.D. Jakes' ministry. Pastor Tudman became a favorite among many churchgoers because of his passionate preaching style, ability to relate to younger audiences, and ability to handle real-life difficulties. He didn't only perform his sermons. People who felt ignored or cut off from conventional church systems found resonance in their sincerity. Pastor Tudman's path to the Potter's house wasn't a coincidence. He was born with a gift for communication. Prior to joining forces with Bishop Jakes, he had already established himself as a well-known speaker and leader. His influence, however, quickly expanded after he joined the Potter's house family. One of the reasons his resignation is so shocking is that he was frequently viewed as a bridge between generations, someone who could convey the eternal truths of the Bible in a way that resonated with Gen Z and millennials. Tudman was more than just another assistant pastor to many members. They trusted his spiritual voice. His presence was captivating, his words were powerful, and his influence extended beyond the pulpit to include leadership, mentoring, and cultural significance. This is where things start to get interesting, though. His ascent inside the Potter's house coincided with significant changes occurring within the church itself. Bishop T.D. Jakes has been striking a careful balance between preserving his unparalleled legacy and training the new generation of leaders. Despite his continued strength and profound influence, many people believe that Pastor Tudman's presence was crucial to that change. He was viewed as a possible successor to Bishop Jakes' spiritual foundation in many respects. The question that naturally arises when a leader who has been positioned for influence abruptly leaves is, why? Was there tension behind the scenes that eventually reached a breaking point, or was this a part of a larger plan? And that's where everything changes when Bishop T.D. Jakes speaks up. His remarks shed light on how leadership changes, legacy, and power dynamics actually operate within one of the most well-known churches in America. Going beyond simply discussing Tudman's departure, however, we must first examine the sequence of events that led to Tudman's departure before delving into Bishop Jake's response. At that point, the narrative takes an unexpected turn. There is a time frame for every significant tale, and Pastor Joel Tudman's departure is no exception. The abruptness of the move and the hush that ensued until Bishop T.D. Jakes eventually addressed it are what distinguish his departure. Pastor Tudman had been a regular at the Potter's House in Dallas for many years. His sermons frequently went viral on the internet, attracting not just church members, but also people from all around the world who were drawn to his audacious delivery and his special ability to relate scripture to everyday hardships. However, something started to change throughout the past 12 months. While other pastors were filling in on Sunday mornings and midweek services, attendees noted that he was missing important services. The mention of Pastor Tudman's name became less frequent. The quiet grew more powerful than words for a community accustomed to seeing him on a regular basis. Questions began to surface. Pastor Tudman is where? He has been preaching a lot, but why? And why is there no formal explanation? When Tudman's social media presence started to shift, the rumors became more widespread. His messaging changed, according to observers, with a greater emphasis on his own ministry and leadership development and less on the Potter's House brand. The rumors were only strengthened by this. Was Pastor Tudman beginning a new chapter in silence? Or was there anything going on behind the scenes that the church's officials didn't want the public to know about? It was confirmed by the middle of the year. Although Pastor Joel Tudman had formally departed the Potter's House, the events that followed left more questions than answers. No significant announcement was made, there was no goodbye party, and the pulpit did not offer a lengthy tribute. This stillness was deafening for a man of his size and influence, and that was the real start of the controversy. Members were taken by surprise. Some contended that a more open explanation was warranted for a pastor who dedicated so much of his time and energy to the ministry. Others hypothesized that there may have been leadership issues, internal disputes, or even differences in vision. Of course, silence frequently generates mistrust in the realm of megachurches, where perception and image are everything. The topic was also picked up by the media, which discussed the abrupt turnaround on blogs, YouTube channels, and Christian news agencies. Was it a choice to shield the church from more serious internal strife, or was this just another instance of a rising leader outgrowing the system? The fact that Bishop Jake remained silent only added to the drama. He ignored the problem directly for weeks, which just made it worse. When Bishop T.D. Jakes eventually broke his silence, people started to wonder, why won't Bishop Jake speak on this? Is he hiding something? Or is he simply waiting for the right moment to set the record straight? Before we get there, though, it's critical to comprehend the various explanations that have been put up regarding Tudman's resignation, as they influence how people currently read Jake's remarks. The startling thing is that some of these theories raise concerns that go far beyond the departure of a single pastor. They allude to leadership conflicts, generational shifts, and the precarious power dynamics in megachurch culture. When a prominent figure abruptly leaves a ministry as powerful as the Potter's House, people start to wonder. And when there are no definitive answers, the void is filled with rumors, whispers, and theories. One of the most talked about possibilities has been the idea of a leadership clash. Like many large organizations, especially megachurches with thousands of members and a global audience, leadership roles come with both influence and tension. Pastor Joel Tudman's departure was not an exception to this rule. Some speculate that Tudman's quick ascent within the church might have created pressure, that his vision for ministry may have begun to veer off course at the Potter's House, that his increasing popularity, his distinctive style, and his ability to relate to younger believers could have made him both an essential asset and possibly an unintended source of tension within an established leadership system. Some see that as a natural progression, a sign of growth, while others see it as a recipe for conflict. The lack of an official narrative only serves to strengthen this theory. The second viewpoint is the personal calling theory, which places more emphasis on calling than conflict. Many of Pastor Tudman's supporters think that his departure was more about fate than disagreement. As a talented preacher with a distinctive voice, he might have felt called to a new chapter where he could lead on his own, forge his own ministry identity, and move beyond the shadow of the Potter's House. A lot of associate pastors at large ministries eventually go out on their own. starting new churches, writing books, and creating platforms that reflect their own vision. History demonstrates that this is not unusual, and Tudman's departure might just be a part of that natural cycle, a time of transition when he leaves under a mentor to become a leader in his own right. The third is the generational shift theory, followed by the generational lens. One of the most reputable voices in contemporary Christianity, Bishop T.D. Jakes, has been progressively preparing the next generation to assume leadership roles, and Tudman appeared to be one of the important individuals who could continue that tradition in the future. However, the reality of generational shifts is rarely smooth. Changes in power, influence, and visibility are frequently fraught with difficulties. His relatability, charisma, and capacity to connect with younger audiences made him a bridge between the traditional foundations of the Potter's house and the changing needs of contemporary believers. 4. The silence that spoke volumes. Perhaps the most interesting aspect of all of this is not what was said, but what wasn't. The absence of a formal statement, a grand farewell, and the delay in Bishop Jakes' response led to another theory, that something behind the scenes required discretion. Was Tudman's departure part of a larger strategy, or did it reveal the challenges of managing such transitions in the public eye? Some contend that this silence was a means of protecting both parties, allowing Pastor Tudman to move on without controversy, while also maintaining the stability of the Potter's house. When leaders remain silent, people tend to assume the worst, even when the truth may be more realistic than dramatic. 5. The bigger question. Regardless of one's theory, the real question is not why Tudman left, but what comes next. What does this departure mean for the Potter's house, for Bishop Jakes' legacy, and for Pastor Tudman's next chapter? Because at the core of this story isn't just the departure of one pastor. Some people think that silence was a strategic move, waiting for the right moment to address the issue in a way that wouldn't cause division among members. Bishop T.D. Jakes' decision to speak out was crucial because, following weeks of unresolved questions and conjecture, his words carried the weight of authority, influence, and clarity. It's a reflection of how megachurches manage leadership, loyalty, and legacy in a time when everything is scrutinized by the public. People started to wonder if Bishop T.D. Jakes would ever address Pastor Joel Tudman's departure after weeks of speculation turned into months of unanswered questions. However, his approach to the matter went far beyond Joel Tudman and revealed a much larger picture about the church, its future, and the balance between individual calling and group mission. But when the time finally arrived, Bishop Jakes' words did not let us down. First, his tone was notable. Rather than coming across as defensive, contemptuous, or accusatory, his approach carried the weight of wisdom and the balance of experience. He honored Tudman's role, acknowledged his contributions, and stressed the value of celebrating seasons of transition rather than dreading them. This tone set the stage for clarity for many listeners. Jake clarified that Pastor Tudman's departure was about purpose rather than scandal or division, framing it as a calling-based decision that serves as a reminder that God occasionally moves people from one assignment to another in order to fulfill a larger destiny. And in the realm of church leadership, where rumors frequently turn into controversy, that framing was important. It confirmed that Tudman wasn't abandoned and reassured members that the Potter's house wasn't broken. Instead, Jake framed the transition as a normal part of ministry. 2. Honoring Tudman's legacy. Bishop Jakes' public acknowledgement of Tudman's influence was another important component of his response. Bishop Jakes' celebration of Tudman's work was more than just flattery. It was a calculated move that sent a message to the congregation. Respect the legacy of those who serve among us, even when their chapter here comes to an end. He did not minimize the years that TDM had invested in the ministry, instead praising his vigor, his love for the word, and his capacity to inspire new generations of believers. 3. The larger lesson on seasons of change. Bishop Jakes' teaching moment was one of the most impactful aspects of his message. He reminded his audience that ministry is not about staying in one role forever, but about obeying God's calling. By doing this, he changed the narrative from one of loss to one of gratitude, from confusion to celebration. This wasn't just about Tudman, it was about leadership itself. Jake used the opportunity to teach the congregation and the larger online audience that change is a natural part of God's plan, and that leaders rise, serve, and occasionally move on to make room for others. People come and go, not because of failure or betrayal, but because the mission demands it. It's not an indication of weakness, but of strength. In many respects, this was classic TD Jake using a moment of uncertainty to deliver a sermon about fortitude, faith in God's timing, and trust. 4. What he didn't say. It's interesting to note that Bishop Jake didn't engage in gossip or divulge personal information. By refusing to give rumors energy, Jake positioned himself and the church as steady, wise, and grounded, and in doing so, he closed the door to controversy. Instead of confronting the rumors head-on, he stayed above the noise, focusing on the bigger picture rather than feeding speculation. 5. Why his response matters. Because in the world of megachurches, perception is everything. Silence had created uncertainty, but Bishop Jake's words restored confidence. His message was clear to the members who wanted answers. The details may not be public, but the spirit of the transition is healthy. He regained control of the story, reassured his congregation, and demonstrated respect for Pastor Tudman by publicly addressing his departure. This response is important to Tudman himself as well. Instead of departing in confusion, he leaves with a blessing, and the Potter's House community, while saddened, is reminded to see his departure as a new chapter rather than a broken relationship. Finally, there is a hidden layer in Bishop Jake's response that should not be missed. 6. The underlying message to future leaders. Bishop Jake's handling of the situation sets a precedent for the larger Christian community, demonstrating how church leaders can navigate transitions with grace, dignity, and wisdom without stoking the flames of rumors. Jake's role as a mentor, preparing others for their future, is reinforced by his subtle message to other rising leaders in the Potter's House. Leadership here is not about holding on to positions, but about serving faithfully until God calls you to the next assignment. Tudman's departure was framed as part of God's plan. The focus then naturally turns to Pastor Joel Tudman himself, asking what his next chapter will be and how his departure from the Potter's House will affect his future in ministry and beyond. He does this by moving the conversation from loss to legacy, from speculation to succession. One such possibility is starting his own church. For many, starting his own church is the most obvious next step for Pastor Tudman. Having preached for years under the tutelage of one of the world's most powerful pastors, Tudman has the resources, the platform, and the credibility to start a successful ministry of his own. Establishing a new church would allow him to build his vision from the ground up. He would be able to address current issues in ways that appeal to the next generation of believers and build a community that reflects his distinct voice and leadership style. If he follows this path, expect to see rapid growth as many of the people who admired him at the Potter's House may follow him into this new era. We live in a time when sermons aren't limited to church walls, so the second option is to move beyond the pulpit and into a more expansive role as a speaker, author, and thought leader. Pastor Tudman's charisma and communication skills make him a natural fit for conferences, workshops, and digital platforms. They are viewed on YouTube, TikTok, podcasts, and streaming services. In addition to preaching on Sundays, Tudman can reach millions of people by creating content that addresses issues of faith, leadership, relationships, everyday struggles, and mental health. He could easily become a global influencer and establish himself as a voice for both personal and spiritual development. 3. Cooperation with other ministries. Next, there's the possibility of cooperation. Pastor Tudman's departure from the Potter's House does not necessarily mean that he will be alone. Rather, it may present opportunities for him to collaborate with other prominent pastors and ministries throughout the nation. This pattern has been observed previously. Leaders who leave a major church frequently start giving guest lectures at conferences, joining networks of pastors, and forming alliances that broaden their influence. 4. The challenge of transition. Of course, opportunity comes with challenges. Ministry transitions are never easy. It takes time, resources, and resilience to build a new platform. Tudman may have to deal with criticism from those who doubt his decision, as well as the pressure to establish himself outside of Bishop Jake's shadow. Tudman's passion and authenticity could make him a sought-after voice, allowing him to bring fresh energy wherever he goes. However, if his past demonstrates anything, it is that he thrives under pressure. His journey thus far has been characterized by vision and tenacity, and now that he is free to choose his own path, he has the opportunity to make an even bigger impact on the ministry world. 5. Why his future is important to the Potter's House legacy. Last but not least, it is crucial to remember that Joel Tudman's next chapter is not just about him. It is also about the Potter's house and Bishop Jake's legacy. If Tudman succeeds, it will affirm Jake's role as a mentor who produced capable leaders and demonstrate that the church is about more than just one man. It is about sowing seeds that sprout into new ministries all over the world. This makes Tudman's future success a part of the Potter's house's ongoing story, demonstrating that its influence extends well beyond the sanctuary's walls. Conclusion: what does all of this mean? The story of Pastor Joel Tudman's departure and Bishop T.D. Jake's response is fundamentally about multiple pastors leaving a church in a situation that could have easily descended into division. Bishop Jake's decision to speak up brought wisdom and clarity. Instead of scandal, he offered perspective. Instead of secrecy, he offered grace. It's about how leadership changes over time, how legacies are passed down, and how God's calling frequently leads us into unexpected chapters. And in doing so, he reminded us all that changes in leadership are about beginnings rather than endings. Pastor Joel Tudman's next move will be watched by the entire faith community. Whether he establishes a church, creates a global platform, or enters into new partnerships, one thing is for sure: his voice isn't done. I wanted to know what you think about Pastor Joel Tudman's departure from the Potter's house. Do you think it was just a natural transition, or do you think there's more to the story? Your perspective adds to this conversation, so please share your thoughts in the comments section below. This is just the start of a new season. Share this video with others who follow Pastor Tudman, Bishop Jake, or anyone else interested in the future of the modern world if you thought this breakdown was insightful. Also, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and enable notifications so you don't miss our in-depth explorations of the stories influencing the world of faith, culture, and leadership.